Before you start watching, please help the channel thrive. Give it a like, hit subscribe, and turn on notifications. Drop a comment if you relate to anything or want to dive into some topics together. What happens when the world's most guarded academic becomes the architect of life and death? Diana's ascent was not just a transformation. It was a total eclipse of every sorceress in history. We are mapping her journey from the library to the throne as she claims the mantle of ultimate power. The Bodleian Library in Oxford has stood for over 400 years as a sanctuary for human knowledge. It has housed over 13 million printed items, from the earliest illuminated manuscripts of the medieval period to the most cutting-edge academic research of the modern age. It has been visited by kings and queens, poets and philosophers, scientists and historians. For most who walk through its doors, it is a place of quiet study, of intellectual discovery, of connection to the past. For Diana Bishop, it was a shield. It was a fortress built from leather-bound books and archival dust, from peer-reviewed papers and meticulously researched historical monographs. It was a place where she could hide from the one thing she had spent her entire life running from: the magic that flowed through her veins. Diana Bishop was not just any academic. She was a tenured professor of the history of science at Yale University, a Rhodes Scholar, a leading expert on alchemical manuscripts of the early modern period. She had published multiple books that had redefined her field. She had lectured at the most prestigious universities in the world. She had earned the respect of her peers through years of rigorous, unflinching academic work. Every element of her professional identity was built on logic, on evidence, on rational inquiry into the natural world. Every choice she made in her career was designed to distance herself from the irrational, the unexplainable, the magical. Because Diana Bishop was not just a historian of science and alchemy, she was a witch. She was the last in a long line of powerful witches, stretching back hundreds of years to the earliest days of the witch trials in Europe. She was the daughter of Stephen Proctor and Rebecca Bishop, two of the most powerful witches of their generation. She was born with a legacy of magic that could have made her one of the most formidable beings in the supernatural world. But for the first 33 years of her life, she wanted nothing to do with it. To understand why Diana chose the dusty archives of Oxford over the terrifying potential of her bloodline, we must first understand the trauma that shaped her relationship with magic. When Diana was 7 years old, her parents were killed in a car accident in Nigeria, or at least that is what the official report said. The truth, as Diana would later learn, was that her parents were murdered by other witches who feared their power, who hated their willingness to work with vampires and daemons, who sought to eliminate the Bishop bloodline entirely. Diana was there that night. She was in the backseat of the car when it crashed. She survived because her magic manifested for the first time, wrapping her in a shield of protective energy that saved her from the impact. But the cost of that survival was profound. In that moment, Diana learned that magic was not a gift. It was a target. It was a force that had taken her parents from her, that had left her an orphan, that had shattered her entire world before she had even reached the age of 8. Before we move on to the next topic, if you have anything you'd like to dive deeper into from the previous segment, leave a comment below. Give this video a like and subscribe to my channel. All right, let's move on to the next topic. For the rest of her childhood and young adulthood, she associated magic with pain, with loss, with fear. She saw it as a chaotic, uncontrollable force that destroyed everything it touched. And she vowed that she would never let it control her. This vow shaped every choice she made in the years that followed. When her aunts, Sarah and Emily, tried to teach her the basics of witchcraft at their home in upstate New York, she refused. She would not speak the words of the spells. She would not touch the athame or the cauldron. She would not acknowledge the magic that lived inside her. When her magic leaked out in small, uncontrollable ways, she would find a rational explanation for it. A gust of wind that closed a door was just a draft. A light that turned on by itself was just a faulty electrical wire. A book that fell from a shelf was just an uneven surface. She built a wall of rationality around herself, a wall that grew thicker and stronger with every academic achievement, every published paper, every promotion. The more successful she became as a historian, the safer she felt. The more she immersed herself in the study of the past, the less she had to confront the magic that lived inside her in the present. Diana's choice to study the history of alchemy and early modern science was not an accident. It was a deliberate part of her shield. Alchemy is the bridge between the magical and the scientific. It is the study of transformation, of the hidden forces that shape the natural world. It is a field that is deeply intertwined with the history of witchcraft and magic. For centuries, alchemists were accused of witchcraft, of consorting with dark forces, of trying to manipulate the natural world through supernatural means. But Diana did not study alchemy for its magical roots. She studied it for its scientific ones. She focused on the ways that alchemical research laid the groundwork for modern chemistry, for physics, for the scientific method. She wrote about the alchemists as rational thinkers, as pioneers of science, not as magicians. She stripped the magic from their work, just as she had stripped the magic from her own life. She used the study of magical history to suppress her own innate magical chaos. She used the archives to distance herself from the very thing she was studying. This is the paradox that defined Diana's life in those years. She was a witch who spent her days studying the history of magic while refusing to acknowledge the magic inside herself. She was an expert on alchemical manuscripts that held the secrets of the universe, while refusing to touch the magic that would let her unlock those secrets. She was a historian who dedicated her life to understanding the past, while running from the legacy of her own past. She was a spectator in the supernatural world that she was born to lead. She stood on the edges, watching from a distance, hiding behind her academic credentials, her rationality, her shield of books and papers. She thought that if she ignored the magic long enough, it would go away. She thought that if she denied it hard enough, it would cease to exist. But magic does not work that way. It does not disappear when it is ignored. It does not fade when it is denied. Plowings. It festers. It waits for the moment when it can no longer be contained. And for Diana Bishop, that moment came in the autumn of 2009, in the reading room of the Bodleian Library, when she called for a manuscript that would change her life forever. Ashmole 782. The Ashmole 782 manuscript, also known as the Book of Life, is one of the most famous lost manuscripts in the history of alchemy and the occult. It is said to have been written by the English alchemist Elias Ashmole in the 17th century, though its origins stretch back much further. It is said to contain the secrets of the creation of the world, the origins of the three supernatural species, witches, vampires, and daemons, the key to immortality, and the power to rewrite the fabric of reality itself. For centuries, scholars and sorcerers alike have searched for it. It has been lost and found multiple times throughout history, and by the 21st century, it was believed to be gone forever. Most historians dismissed it as a myth, a legend, a work of fiction. Diana Bishop was one of those historians. She had written about Ashmole 782 in her academic work, framing it as a legendary text that had never actually existed or that had been destroyed centuries before. She never expected to hold it in her hands. On that autumn day in Oxford, Diana was in the Bodleian Library, researching for her latest book on alchemical emblems. She filled out a call slip for a series of manuscripts from the Ashmole collection, a routine request that she had made hundreds of times before in her career. When the manuscripts arrived at her desk, there was an extra one in the stack. A leather-bound volume, worn and faded, with the number 782 embossed on the spine. Ashmole 782. Diana's first reaction was not wonder, or excitement, or even curiosity. Why are they? She knew immediately that this was not a normal manuscript. She could feel the magic radiating from it, a low hum that vibrated through her fingertips when she touched the cover. She could feel her own magic responding to it, rising up inside her, pushing against the wall of rationality that she had spent decades building. For a moment, she almost pushed it away. She almost sent it back to the stacks, pretending that she had never seen it. She almost retreated back into the safety of her academic shield, back into the life of a spectator, back into the denial that had kept her safe for so long. She did not. She opened the book. The moment her fingers touched the pages of the manuscript, everything changed. The pages were blank at first, empty of any writing or images. But as her magic flowed into them, words and images began to appear, glowing with a golden light that only she could see. Alchemical emblems, illustrations of magical creatures, spells written in ancient languages, all of them coming to life under her touch. The library around her began to react. The lights flickered on and off. The wind blew through the closed windows, flipping the pages of the books on the tables around her. The temperature dropped suddenly, even though the heating system was working perfectly. The magic of the manuscript was unlocking the magic inside her, breaking through the walls she had built, forcing her to confront the very thing she had spent her life running from. She slammed the book shut, her hands shaking, her heart racing. She looked around the reading room, half expecting the other scholars to have seen what had happened, to have noticed the chaos that had erupted around her. But they were all still focused on their own work, oblivious to the magic that had just been unleashed. They saw only a quiet academic sitting at a desk with a stack of old books. They did not see the witch that had just been awakened. In that moment, Diana Bishop was forced to make a choice. She could return the manuscript to the stacks, walk out of the Bodleian Library, and go back to her life as an academic. She could pretend that she had never seen Ashmole 782, that the magic she had felt was just her imagination, that the events of that day had never happened. She could remain a spectator in the supernatural world, hiding behind her shield of books and papers, continuing to deny the magic that lived inside her. Or she could embrace the truth. She could accept that she was a witch, that the magic inside her was real, that the manuscript had chosen her for a reason. She could step out of the shadows of the archives and become the protagonist of her own story. She could stop running from her legacy and start living it. For the first time in her life, Diana did not choose the safe path. She did not choose denial. She did not choose the shield. She checked the manuscript out of the library, took it back to her apartment in Oxford, and began to read. She did not know it yet, but that choice would set her on a path that would transform her from a quiet historian into the most powerful sorceress to ever walk the earth. It would take her from the library to the throne, from a life of denial to a life of ultimate power. It would break every boundary she had ever set for herself and rewrite the future of every supernatural being in the world. The academic shield that Diana had built over 33 years was not just a collection of books and papers. It was a prison. It was a cage that she had built for herself, to protect herself from the pain and fear that magic had brought into her life. But in building that cage, she had also locked away her own power, her own potential, her own true self. The Ashmole 782 manuscript did not just unlock the secrets of the universe. It unlocked the cage that Diana had built for herself. It forced her to choose between a life of safe, quiet denial and a life of dangerous, extraordinary power. And in that moment in the Bodleian Library, Diana Bishop chose power. She chose to stop hiding. She chose to stop running. She chose to step into the story that she had been born to live. The story of the Weaver. The story of the Guardian of the Book of Life. The story of the most formidable sorceress in history. And it all began with a choice, in a library, between remaining a spectator and becoming the protagonist.